This is Sunday, September 13th, and welcome to the morning service of the North Chapel in Woodstock, Vermont. My name is Richard Waddell, and it's good to see you on this beautiful morning. Our minister, the Reverend Dr. Leon Dunkley, will provide today's reflection titled Community Connections. On an ordinary Sunday, you would be entering the historic church and hearing the immense Paul Revere bell welcoming you from high up in the bell tower. After the ringing of the chime, our talented music director, Diane Mellinger, would begin the prelude on the 1875 Thayer organ, and then the North Chapel Choir would sing the introit. But these are not ordinary times. The North Chapel is closed, and you're watching this service on YouTube. But we look forward to the day when we can all be together again face to face and reconnect with our friends, the church building, and our extended community. Please join us in the singing of the opening hymn, The Morning Hangs a Signal, number 40 in your hymnal.
Hello, my name is Laura Foley, and today I'd like to read you a poem which I wrote after a snowshoe hike through these very hemlock woods and up to a higher peak. And it was a hike with my wife, Clara. Keep trying. After snowshoeing up the steep hill in deep swaths of snow, we stop beneath a glittering globe of sky. The space of silence opens over us, standing as if we were the base, channeling current to a bulb too hot to touch. We remove gloves, hats, jackets in surprising winter heat. In this quiet spot on the top, in a forest of would-be lamps, sensing the thaw that will spark their green, our lips find each other's. Gazing upward, stretched out together in the snow, yet apart. We keep trying, as Mary Oliver and the Buddha instructs, to make of ourselves a light. One bright enough to guide us to kindness, toward ourselves, toward each other, toward every living thing, and hope to carry that shine with us back down the hill into our separate lives. Thank you.
Sometimes you don't realize how lucky you truly are until you find yourself right smack dab in the middle of beautiful life. And even if you do realize how lucky you truly are, it can still take some time before you can relax enough to let yourself fall into it. I fell into something special in California in 2005. When I entered seminary, I went to California alone. I lived a life of quasi-solitude in a group house with a bunch of other seminarians. We were a fierce little tribe. And I remember that first year climbing the hill on Euclid Avenue and taking classes at the Star King School. My mentor, Rebecca Parker, the Reverend Doctor, was the president of the school back then, and we would meet in the fireside room and throw our dreams against the heavens just to see what would bounce back and fall down to us like rain. Star King is not a big school, but it competes above its fighting weight. It's like a spry little Jack Russell that doesn't know how to give up the bone, that doesn't know how to surrender in a good fight. I asked Dr. Parker about that. I said it seemed like there was a sense of determination that had been baked right into the walls. And she said that she was glad that I noticed. She said, "We're small, but we're mighty. I love that expression. We're small, but we're mighty. It reminds me of a friend I have in Western Massachusetts, Jason Seymour. Is a friend of mine from a while ago. He and I met in the ministry back in St. Paul when we both lived there. He moved away when he was called to serve the Unitarian Universalist Society of Greater Springfield in Western Mass. I dropped in on him once unexpectedly, and he showed me around the church. And there was nobody there, so I couldn't get the feel of it, although it was clearly a beautiful building. So I asked him to describe the church experience in as few words as possible, and he said, just as Dr. Parker did, we're small, but we're mighty. I think that Dr. Parker and Reverend Seymour had such similar responses because they were both referencing the same story from Unitarian Universalist history. Thomas Starr King was a well-known minister in California. He knew John Muir, the American naturalist. He fought hard for our national parks. He knew President Abraham Lincoln, and he fought hard for the abolition of slavery. In fact, he was credited for seeing that California enter the Union as a free state. He was a heavy hitter. He did quite a lot in a relatively short amount of time, for he lived less than 40 years. He died in 1864, towards the end of the American Civil War. Thomas Starr King had a close and powerful set of friends, confidants, surrounding him. He could depend on them. He had the support he needed so he could grapple with the best of them. And he did. His preaching style was unique, it was edgy and critical, deeply Christian, as was the Unitarianism of his day. He was outspoken on political issues, but he was not a politician. He was a moral leader, and he was a public intellectual. He understood the ethical implications of political life, and he struck a careful balance between all of these things and God. He would strive hard to press up to the edge of progressive thought without stepping over into radicalism, even though radicalism may have been his truer heart. He's a wonderful man. Reverend Thomas Starr King was a fighter for justice. He was well known for his passion and well known for the quote that encapsulated his power. Now, he was on the shorter side as a man. He was about 5'7", and he was slight, and he knew it. But he didn't let that get in the way of his powerful ministry. Most famously, he said, "I only weigh 120 pounds, but when I'm mad, I weigh a ton." He knew who he was. He knew what was possible in life, and courageously he chose that possibility. How lovely a thing to know yourself so well, to see yourself beautifully reflected like the day star in the eyes of others, to see yourself reflected from the hearts of other people, to hear your song on the native tongue of good community, singing faith above all fear. How lovely a thing that our good words can tell the story of our lives so well, and that our true living can engender such good story. What helps us with this? What practice, what ways of being, what gentle and trusted habits of mind lend to us the crucible that allows us to understand ourselves this deeply? The crucible is a hardened container within which softer metals can be melted and mixed. The word crucible is also metaphorical at times. It's a super fun word to say. It is a safe shelter word for me. It's a word that describes the brave home of honesty, care, and witness. Have you ever been to such a place? Are you interested in building one? Do you long to go? Now, I can't see you through the screen right here, so I can't tell how you're responding. So maybe a different example of what I'm talking about might be helpful. Back in high school, me and a few friends decided to start up a rock band. We called ourselves Paradox. We were on the poppier side of the music scene back then. We worked pretty hard and we got pretty good and we hung out all of the time. Our lead singer was a pretty boy back then. He's still cute and all, but he's losing his hair and going gray like all of us. Back in the day, he was a heartthrob, so the band was really popular. And it's not like he couldn't sing, actually quite the opposite. I thought that he had the best voice in high school. He went on to Broadway. I have tremendous respect for his singing voice. That did not seem to be in question. And if he wasn't sounding good, or if any of us weren't sounding good, we told each other. We talked to each other. We were honest like that. And then we would commit to working together to get better where we were weak. That's basically what we did. This slow, incremental, long-term journey of improvements. And after a little while, the band got to sounding pretty good. We did not start out that way. We started out when we were about 15, making it up as we were going along. We were a motley crew, but it all worked out. Me and Rob had pretty low quality instruments back in the day. I had an old Gretsch amplifier with almost no power behind it, and I had an electric guitar that really wasn't very good, but we did our best. Rob's had his father's drum set, if I'm remembering correctly. And he put tons of labor into it, removing the rust and shining it up and replacing the skins. Rob was self-taught, all of us were, and we leaned so much on one another. That's what made it special. We leaned on each other. It was like an unsaid, sacred promise that we shared. And it made us famous. Check out this picture from 1981. Willie was the keyboard player. He was actually an accordion player, and that was unique. No one else, and I mean no one else in high school, had an accordion player in their rock band. Willie was just such a wonderful player, and we all just followed his lead, and we were unapologetic about it. He was awesome, and you couldn't knock us down. We played really good music, and no one really cared about what other people were saying. Did you, as an aside, did you hear this recent story? Actually, it was back in June. Did you hear that West Virginia just elected its first openly transgender politician? Yeah, Rosemary Ketchum was victorious a few months ago. She is now one of 27 transgendered elected officials in the United States. There was a CNBC news article about it. It reads, Ketchum, 26, became the first openly transgender elected official in West Virginia when she won a city council seat in Wheeling on June 9th. Ketchum's win may seem unlikely. Many West Virginians identify as conservative, but Wheeling is a small but mighty town whose economy has suffered due to manufacturing shutdowns over the years, but is becoming more and more of a progressive place. Great energy in this one. Hats off to Wheeling, West Virginia. That's wonderful. I wonder what circle of support and witness Rosemary has around her. She's wonderful. She's got a great smile, so charismatic, great attitude. What I really love about her the most is her passionate disposition. She was being interviewed not too long ago on the radio, and the host raised a question to her, and he said, "What do you think about all the crazy things that are being said about you?" And it seemed like there had been some dissension, some derision. Rosemary had the most brilliant answer, the most refreshing answer I've ever heard. She said, "What other people say and think about me is none of my business." She answered with such speed and with such clarity. What helped her to find that kind of strength? I was floored. For so much of my life, I have looked over my shoulder. I have been so very deeply concerned about the opinions of other people. That energy, their energy, real or imagined, has been a major force in shaping my life. But you know, it never bowled me over, as powerful as it was. It never toppled me. And I think that part of the reason why is because of the rock band. I had my own small but mighty circle of support around me. We all did. That was the promise that we made to one another. We were lucky. So very lucky. I'm lucky. Not only for their honesty, care, and witness, but for their continued support throughout my life. We've been friends now for more than 40 years. The band was a small but mighty circle of support. Now, there are lots of small but mighty people in our community. Now, I don't need to call you out by your names. You know who you are, with your steadfast support and concern for the Upper Valley homeless community, and with your commitments to the food shelf and to the Woodstock Relief Fund, with your dedication to the new and the gorgeous park on the east end of town. Clearly, there are small but mighty people in this community, but they've been doing a great job for so many years. Those aren't the ones that I'm talking about. Those aren't the ones that I want to call your attention to. I'm thinking of the small but mighty folks who regularly take over the playground swings and run around kicking brightly colored balls across fresh-cut soccer fields. I'm thinking about the many small but mighty children who build sandcastles by the lakeside, only to watch them be crushed beneath the feet of a toddler with big smiles on their faces. Now, I was much less generous as a kid when I was growing up, not nearly as generous as these guys are. The kids and their parents gathered last week for a spiritual exploration event that Geraldine and I organized for last Friday. Super low-key and super fun. It was so much fun to spend time together. And I borrowed a friend's canoe, and I towed it behind my kayak across the lake so that the other families could make use of it. I really wanted everything to work out. Now, the plan was to meet up at around 4:30 and spend time together before this strange new school year begins. The tensions are high for parents, often less so for the kids. Now, I was running a little late, so I sang this song. There's a lovely song by Joni Mitchell. It's called Just Like This Train, and the words are these. I'm always running behind the times, just like this train, shaking into town with the brakes complaining. I love that line. But I can't tell you how many times I've sung that song to myself, trying to calm myself down when I'm running late, trying to get myself to settle, and gently face my great anxiety about the fact that I am always running behind the times, just like Joni said. I make the same mistake over and over again. I take on one good task too many right before it's time to go, and I leave no margin for error, accident, or circumstance. I recently had a meeting in Quechee just the other day, and I needed 30 minutes to get to where I was going, but I had to clean the kitchen before I took off. I didn't want to have to come home to a mess. I did a few too many things, and I left myself only 27 minutes. Not too bad. I might be able to make that up. So I rushed into the world, hoping that my GPS knows me well enough by now and has adapted to how I actually am. I hope that my smartphone was finally catching on. Unfortunately, very early in the journey, I found myself behind a very slow driver on a one-lane road. It was a test, and God was watching. I knew it. I was definitely going to be late this time, and I started dreaming up of excuses to explain myself, but what I really needed to do was face the truth. I need to become more responsible about being on time. I'm trying. This has long been a not-so-great quality of mine, and after 55 years, I accept this about myself. The question is, what am I going to do about it? The question is, who's going to help me? Because I have not been able to fix this on my own. It is at moments like this that I think about small but mighty circles, communities of honesty, care, and witness that help us grow and become stronger where we are weak. I'll circle back to this. So like I said, the plan that I made with Geraldine was to meet up with the spiritual exploration families, the SE families, on the Silver Lake Beach at 4:30 and spend time together before the school year begins. I headed out for that event. And I had the same feeling that I've had many other times, the feeling that I was going to be late. So I sang the Joni Mitchell song, trying to calm myself down. I am always running behind the times, just like this train, chasing into town with the brakes complaining. And I sang it with a clenched jaw, and I was gritting my teeth. The last thing on earth I wanted to do, to have happen on that evening, was for an army of small but mighty church kids to be impatiently waiting for me, their minister, when I finally arrived with the canoe that they wanted to use. Now, I've tried to set my clocks forward by 15 minutes, but I never forget that I've done so I compensate in the back of my mind. I'd like to set the whole world back 15 minutes, but that's not fair to everyone else. For as many times as I've thought about doing that, it would be years ago by now, if you know what I mean. The problem was worst in Maryland. And I may have shared this with you before, but I used to practice Bikram yoga, hot yoga. And you have to be there on time. They close the door and they drive up the heat. It's really important. I was really pushing it one day, taking on too much and trying to get it all done, and I sped past a sleeping policeman. Do you know what that is? It's a little speed-activated camera that takes a picture of your license plate and then sends you the ticket in the mail. It was dusk, and I could see the telltale flash in my rearview mirror as I drove by, and I screamed as I roared through the intersection, "Don't you know I'm trying to get to yoga?" Oh, deep inside, I knew I had a problem. They say the first step is admitting that to yourself. I wasn't addressing it in the right way at all. I needed a trusted friend to clarify what was going on for me. And with a little help, I reframed the issue. And it wasn't that I was chronically late, like I thought it was. It was that I was in the habit of taking on more than I could actually do. And I have to let some of that go. And I'm learning. Now, the trusted friend who finally told me all of this wasn't a member of my high school rock band. It wasn't one of the beloved colleagues down in Springfield, Massachusetts, and it wasn't Dr. Parker, my mentor back at the Star King School in California. The trusted friend who told me this was me. How lucky is that? I was my own beloved friend. In the presence of a small but mighty community, a community of honesty, care, and loving witness. Now, if you feel that you might grow and that you might benefit from being in such a community, I invite you to take a look at covenant groups because they're starting up right now. Or, if this doesn't suit you, and if you are so inclined, I invite you to join a high school rock and roll band. There are so many ways of growing and finding peace. You know, sometimes you just don't realize how lucky you truly are until you find yourself right smack dab in the middle of beautiful life, and there I was, right smack dab in the middle of it. I think I'd like to change the title of this reflection after all. I think the better title for this reflection is Falling into Beautiful Life. But you know what, I'm not going to worry about it. So I headed out to the meeting on the beach at Silver Lake. I was rushing, but I didn't need to. I sang the Joni Mitchell song, but unnecessarily. And I landed on the beach with my kayak before the first of the SE families arrived. I meditated for a few moments and thanked the heavens that I was there on time. And then I heard the laughter of the families approaching. And we made sandcastles by the lakeside, and we wrecked them with our bare feet. And we splashed around and we swam a little. And we paddled around to where the fish were jumping and where the turtles kept motionless watch. We had fun. Who knows? Maybe that group will find itself in a small and mighty community of support. Maybe so. Blessed be and amen. It's nice.
If it's a simple life you want, if it's happiness you seek, hang your laundry on the line at least once a week. You might think that it's more work and it will take a lot more time, but happiness is waiting. Just hang your laundry on the line. Take a beautiful morning, spend some time out in the sun. Lower your stress, and still get something done. You don't have to watch your breath, or empty out your mind. You don't need instruction, just hang your laundry on the line. Hang your laundry on the line, out in the sun. Unplug your dryer and your mind. Please get it done.
Get it done.
If it's a simple life you want,
Simple life you
if it's happiness you seek,
happiness you
hang
seek.
your laundry on the line,
Laundry on the line.
at least once a week.
Once a week.
You might think that it's more work,
It's no
and
more
it will
work.
take a lot more
No
time,
more time.
but happiness is waiting. Just hang your laundry on the line. Happiness is waiting. Hang your laundry on the line.
Many thanks for joining us for our Sunday service today. My name is Mary Blanton, and as fall approaches, there are several more opportunities for you to join with community members on Zoom. Jenny Gelfin will be leading an expressive writing workshop called Exploring Your Creative Spirit that will start in late September, and covenant groups will be beginning in October. If you're new to covenant groups, there will be a short video describing them at the end of these announcements. And if you haven't bought your bulbs, you're in luck. The sale doesn't end until September 15th. The writing group's book, Wednesday Poets, is out. It's a beautiful book, and I encourage you to buy a copy as the proceeds go to support the North Chapel. And please don't forget to fill out and return your task force survey. If you're interested in meeting with our community on Zoom today, at 11 you have two choices: the Digging Deeper session called Meet the Minister with Leon, or Coffee Hour, or Join the Amazing Grays at 11:30. If you're interested in signing up for a covenant group or to learn more about any of these activities and much more, please go to our North Chapel website. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Richard Schramm. Covenant groups will be starting up again this fall. I hope you'll consider joining one. They consist of 8 to 10 people. We meet once a month for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and that will meet from October to May. They'll be on Zoom as long as that's required, and the groups will be facilitated. In covenant groups, participants share their thoughts and feelings about a particular topic. It could be joy or empathy or solitude or loss or grief, something that touches you deeply from within. We'll use poems and other readings to get the sharing started. Covenant groups are about sharing and listening rather than conversation and debating. Parker Palmer says groups of this sort allow the soul to show up, and they're entirely confidential. To get a sense of what someone might get out of a covenant group, here are a number of individuals with experience with covenant groups who'll share what those groups have meant to them. Whether you've done these covenant groups before or this is your first one, I strongly urge you to give it a try. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Judy, and my experience with covenant groups is that it's a unique opportunity to get to know members on a much deeper level. It's a safe place to share from the heart in a setting that's confidential and trustworthy and trusting. And it's an opportunity to explore topics that I might not necessarily do so in other areas of my life.